All right, Dan, welcome to this edition of Meet the Supplier, where we are going through those that supply the franchise industry with things that are relevant back to franchisees or franchisors or other suppliers. So just from an opening standpoint, just so that anybody that watches this and listens to our conversation beyond this point, tell us what you do.
Okay. Well, Premier Retail Support is a virtual commercial real estate information source that explains the entire process of site selection, the art and science behind site selection. Most established brands, Nick, have a full in-house real estate department. And for all of those emerging brands or smaller franchisees that don't, I see major mistakes being made all the time. I've been in commercial real estate for 30 years. I've been a broker since 2007. And I found that, the last one was probably a couple of years ago. I live in Pittsburgh, and a coffee shop opened on the PM side of the highway. And so the AM side's going to work, PM side's the dominant coming home. And actually my daughter Rachel was in the car with me, and they had the grand opening sign right over their front door. And I said to Rach, I said, that business is going to go out of business in a few months. And she goes, no, it isn't, Dad. They're having their grand opening. And I said, Rach, it's on the PM side of the highway. I said, it's 8:30 in the morning. They have a drive-through. There is nobody in line. And we are bumper to bumper on the AM side. And bottom line is they went out of business in a few months. Ironically, to me, 6 months ago, Dunkin' Donuts opened on the AM side, and it's 2 lanes going in, 45,000 cars a day. Between probably 7 and 10 o'clock, you can't get in the left or in the right lane because it's all lined up going through Dunkin' Donuts. Yeah. And I thought, what if all of those lessons were all put into a website, broken down by subject area, whether it be the site selection stage, the demographic analysis stage, the letter of intent stage, and all of those lessons from an opening contingency to exclusives to the AM PM side of the highway. What if all of that information was available to everybody and on an annual subscription? And so I mentioned it to 3 of my buddies, Doreen, Len, and Larry. And I said, I'd like to hire you to end up helping me build this website. And Len came back first and he said, Dan, I don't want to be hired. He goes, I want to be your partner. He goes, it doesn't exist. And so 14 months ago, we launched Premier Retail Support. The first convention we went to was the Emerging Brand in Nashville and was very, very, very well received. And then they said, Dan, you got to go to the annual convention at IFA over in Vegas. So I rented a booth. And if you're not familiar with renting a booth, you probably are. It's $10,000. And between the booth and the travel and everything like that. And so what we did is we launched, and I found that it was really, really interesting, Nick, that people who would stop and say, Premier Retail Support, what is that? And I would explain that what we do is share the entire art and science of selecting real estate. And people would open their wallet, give me a credit card, and 10 minutes later, they're live on my site. And I said to Larry, who was my partner that was there, I said, think about it. Those people that walked down aisle 6 did not intend on spending $500. And all of a sudden, they're taking out their credit card. And one lady, her name was Sasha, that signed up immediately. She goes, you're exactly what I'm looking for. And I said, Sasha, thank you, but why? And she goes, I have been told that that's a great site. She goes, for my business. She goes, but I didn't understand why it was a great site. And I said, I want to understand the why behind the site selection. So that's your long expanded overview of what Premier Retail Support does.
I love it. So first the comment, because I happen to be in marketing. That Duncan story is a fantastic story. And so if it's me, I'm an outsider and I've landed onto your website, which I was an outsider when I'm landing on your website, and I can dig through. I'm an intelligent human being. I can figure out what you do. But that story would stick with so many people, not just from the franchisee standpoint, but from the franchisor standpoint. Because what that happens, let's say that coffee shop was a franchise, that franchisee invested their life savings into a business.
That's right.
They selected that real estate. They opened up and built out that real estate. They have personal ties to that real estate because of all the loans and costs that went into it.
Yep.
And it failed. And the franchisor fails because the franchisor gets no money off of royalty because that unit now just closed. And so if I'm you, somehow I talk about that story. That's what I want to see. I don't want to see your logo. I want to see that story. And maybe you extract this video and you put it right there, because that's your why you why now.
Actually, we've launched it's called the Lunch and Learn series. It's a YouTube video, and all of them are on the website. And that is the story behind the AM PM side. And I've come up with probably 20 or 22 of those stories, Nick. And actually, I've already written the next 10, so I'm up to 32. And one of them was it was last June or July, right here in Pittsburgh. A new Crave franchise opened in Bethel Park. And Crave, if you're not familiar with it, they sell gourmet hot dogs, chicken wings, and they have a wall of beer. And you just go over and pour whatever you want, 2 ounces, 5 ounces, or 12 ounces, and then it automatically bills it to your credit card. And the evening that my wife and I were there, it was about 2 weeks after they opened, they were giving the beer away for free. And I said to the manager, I said, I don't mind paying for the beer, but why are you giving it away for free? And she said, we had to give it away for free because our rent was starting and we didn't have a liquor license yet to sell the beer. And I said, you could have had a liquor license contingency in your lease, that the rent wouldn't start till you got your liquor license, and you had no control over that. And her response was, I didn't know that. Mm-hmm. And Nick, our number on every one of the pages in our website, there is a comment page. The number one comment that we've received hundreds of times is, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. And I, I'm always asking my wife, how do I promote it better? How do I promote Premier Retail Support? She goes, Danny, the challenge that you have is that most people don't realize what they don't know. And because of that, they don't know about the AM PM side of the highway. They don't know about the liquor license contingency. I can't tell you how many shopping centers in my 30 years I've seen where the anchor gets delayed. The small shops are under construction. Then they open, and the anchor's still not there yet. And why? Because they didn't have an opening co-tenancy. Or the exact opposite. Let's say that small Walmart pulls out and moves to a Walmart supercenter a mile away, and everybody's stuck. Why? Because they didn't have a continuing operating covenant. And every one of these variables, if it doesn't happen to you, you didn't get screwed. But if it does happen to you, and you ended up taking a second mortgage on your house, or it leads you to bankruptcy, that Crave restaurant, I went over there probably maybe a month and a half ago. So it's been open. It was open less than a year, and it's closed. Uh-huh. And I just sit and I know there's a 20 different variables why that franchisee could have failed. But as you pointed out, the franchisor lost the location. And once that location does close, they've got to declare it in their FDD moving forward. And so it's just sad. If I give you, and I do a little a sidebar just of my experience, and I'll do that in just a minute or so. I was with Sunglass Hut for 3 years. Then I went with GNC franchising for 10 years. Then I was with Family Dollar, Dollar Tree for 17 years. And most recently, I was 4.5 years as the director of real estate for United Franchise Group out of West Palm Beach, Florida, who has 1,600 franchisees under 10 brands in 80 countries around the world. So, and I found that every time I was exposed to another group of franchisees, I found myself repeating the same lessons over and over. And so I said, once again, that was another motivation to launching Premier Retail Support, our business helping your business.
All right. So as you were talking, here's my challenge, and you know, these are conversations, and a lot can come out of them, and so you get my brain spinning. And again, I happen to be in marketing. I don't think the message "our business helping your business" is telling your story. I think your story is saving businesses from unnecessarily closing their doors.
Yeah.
That should be your tagline. And then right underneath that, you need to say real estate answers when you say, I don't know. Because you're solving the problem. And you know, I get this. It's very hard for businesses to step outside of their own shoes and say, okay, how can I better position it? But you're having the conversation with your wife. How do we better tell this story?
Right.
And so you've built the answer, but you got to think through the ghosts who are walking in IFA and walk by you because, all right, I don't need any retail support. They don't know what you are. And so if you can simplify the why you, why now, I think it's going to lift up your message because it will resonate with, it could, as far as me. I mean, when I signed my first lease in Decatur, Georgia, when we started our business, I didn't know what I was doing. I signed it. There was no enhancements to the space. We actually took over an old Amco transmissions. So it was cool. There was loft spaces, but I didn't know what we were doing. Flash forward, we moved to Chicago. We use our residential real estate agent to help us find a space, which we did on the first one. And then when we finally used CBRE on the second one and moved into Prudential building in downtown Chicago, like that was a much different experience.
Right.
But if I go back to the beginning, I didn't know. And so for a franchisee, majority of franchisors don't overly support them in it. And frankly, the mistake that a franchisee usually does is they say, all right, here's my cost per square foot here, and here's my cost per square foot there. I'm going to go the cheaper route. What they don't do is they don't say, okay, what's foot traffic look like? They don't look at, okay, AM, PM, what is the traffic patterns look like? They don't look at a competitor comparison of who's in my circumference, and neither does the franchisor. Now, the franchisor, in my opinion, should be invested in this because higher gross sales equals more royalty. They're not, because franchisors also take the cheapest route possible to supporting franchisees. And so you fit right in the middle there, but you need to be able to tell that story beyond your four walls and say, how do we tell this? So go back to the IFA, you buy a booth as a supplier. And I think there's value in this to any other franchise supplier that's even thinking about breaking into franchising. You spend the $10K, travel, time, energy, you're sitting at this booth. Do you walk away with a return on investment from there? And then in retrospect, what would you have done differently to get more of a return on investment?
Yeah. Well, one of the franchisors that signed it, that stopped at our booth, and we had the one-on-one opportunity to explain what we're doing. He said, he goes, I'm signing up all 12 of my franchisees for Premier Retail Support because, he goes, they're all doing it a different way. And I said, you know, when I was with GNC during our heyday, we were opening 500 stores a year.
Yeah.
And I said, and every one of those letters of intent were identical. Every one of the site tours were identical. We were opening stores in like 40 cities simultaneously. And I said, so you can set up a system. And I said, and the website actually explains that whole thing by subject area sequentially. So if someone comes into the process and they've already selected a a location, they've already got a signed letter of intent, well, then they can pick up in our website and help you get support all the way through to the grand opening. And we cover everything from construction, the terminology. We've got uh, we've got a industry support section because our subscribers have asked us, Nick, can you recommend someone that does franchise financing? So we have a company that does that. Can you recommend logoed merchandise so that we can have that kind of a apparel supplier? And we have that. And that's not the bread and butter. The bread and butter is supporting the franchisees and having the but you're right. Getting the message out is it's a challenge because as we started saying right before we you started recording, social media is 2023 and beyond, and it's not just rolling out a better idea. It's finding a way to communicate that to the masses. Our our launch program or our program is called Learn Worlds that our website is built on. And Learn Worlds recently came to us and said, we have never seen a website be as informative on a subject that has never been covered before. And they said, we'd like to do a case study on you. And when we do, they said, we will then roll that case study out to our, and this is a quote, hundreds of thousands of visitors. So we're hoping that once it's complete in the next couple of months, that that'll have Premier Retail Support go viral, because that's the word that everybody's looking for nowadays.
Well, so a few things to unpack there. One, again, I still come back to make your message super clear to the user. You clearly have a value in what you offer once you can get them signed up. But frankly, a lot of that is locked behind a paywall, which it should be. But you got, like, if you go viral, what you want very clear explanation on why you want to sign up for this. And again, for a franchisee, it's very simple to me. Before you close your doors, you open the doors to us, because we'll give you the knowledge tools to make the right decision. That you might save $1 on real estate, perceive that you're saving $1, but it's actually costing you 10. Right. And so that is a great insight. And then for the franchisor, like, we actually help you drive more royalty, because if your franchisees select the right real estate, they're going to have higher gross volume. So I think your whys are there. I would make sure that you perfect that storytelling, because you solve a problem, but you need your website and your booth and the brand to scream that when you're not in the room,
Right. And that's probably the biggest challenge that I'm having right now, Nick, is that when we are at the IFA, and I just got back from Jacob Javits in New York City at the IFA Expo, when I'm able to make a one-on-one pitch, I get a wave of subscribers. But if I refer someone to the website, or excuse me, if they find the website on their own, it's not as successful as it would be if Dan was explaining the way we're having this conversation. And that's just the challenge of every business owner, is to try and find, how do I do it better? And
this is how you do it better. Like, and this is where, look, right now, Dan's not on the website. You're buried. You can find you in About Us, but remember that they buy, like, the reason you're able to close deals is because brands don't sell brands, people do. And you're in front of a human being. You're like, this is why you want to work with Dan. Yeah. You got to get Dan. Dan has to be on the front of that website, so that when someone lands in there, they click, and it could be as simple as watching this video. You click on it, you watch it, and you're like, yeah, I get it. And I do think your Duncan story connects with so many different human beings, especially those that have been there, done that with a failed location. They know what that feels like, to turn in their keys and bury their head and walk away with their tail in between their legs, because it sucks.
Yeah. Well, and Nick, and the AM PM story about the coffee shop, is just one. I mean, I would guess that in Chicago and in Atlanta, you could point to a half a dozen shopping centers that have, let's say, 2 pizza shops in it. And whenever I see 2 salons or pizza shops, my first thought is, why didn't the first guy in ask for an exclusive? He would have got it, number one, but he had to ask for it. And then one of our subscribers called me last week. His name was Yogesh, and he goes, "I am so upset." And I said, "Tell me why." And he said, I signed my lease last Friday. I learned of Premier Retail Support the day after on Saturday. He goes, my signage. I have a sign over my space that I've leased. He goes, and the former tenant, which was a cleaner, had 2 panels on the monument sign. Monument signs on the ground, pylons up in the air. But he had 2 signs on the monument sign. His broker and whoever helped him with his lease neglected to include those 2 panels. And so when he went back to the landlord and said, I want those 2 panels, he goes, I've already given them away, because there's 17 tenants in his shopping center, and there was only 12 panels for advertising against the street, and he had 2 of them. And you sit back and you go, that's actually covered on my website under signage, because I've seen it happen so many times. And I could give you, whether it's the AM, PM, or the exclusive, or the contingency, or the signage issue, every one of these stories. In fact, on our website, Nick, there is it's called Franchise Nightmares. And there's it's a 5-minute read ebook. And it covers a half a dozen different stories that all could have been prevented had the franchisee knew what they didn't know. And so you're right. After this call, I'd like to follow up with you in Mainland more often, or because there's probably an opportunity where I am not promoting myself properly or to the best possible, most productive way, that maybe you could guide me and make a few dollars along the way.
Well, I mean, look at this. I'm just going to put this comment up that just came across the screen. This is someone watching live. So he sees it, but again, like you got to get that story told.
Yeah.
He's saying, I can hear it. I think this is a solution. And that's where, like, again, like, opportunity lies in the way that you present a story. And we all know, especially anybody in sales, that when you can get in front of someone that is a qualified, ready to buy buyer, which for you, it's any franchisee or franchisor that has any form or relationship with real estate. But it doesn't just stop there. I mean, the reality is, a franchise supplier like myself, when I was scouting out real estate, having solutions like this would have made sense early on, especially if I'm not using a big brokerage. And so, but you need the opportunity to get that bat and get in front of someone. And that's why we're doing this. We're having these conversations to try to give some guidance onto it. So, all right, let's end on this. What's your dream for the next year? What does winning look like for you?
What does winning look like, me? Probably the LearnWorld's case study having us go viral, continuing to promote Premier Retail Support. The other thing that it didn't come out yet, Nick, is that we do not have a competitor. And people go, no, you got to have a competitor. No, actually, we don't, because the money in commercial real estate site selection is in brokerage, and the commissions that get paid to brokers, and in owning the shopping center. It's not in educating the tenant.
Yeah.
And so just trying to get our message out and meeting nice people like Nick, that gives me the opportunity to be a little bit more visible and maybe embrace Mainland to another level.
Well, Dan, I'm going to call you a liar on that. I asked you what winning was, and we just talked about you got to get this golf game right. So winning is actually playing golf well. It doesn't matter what happens in the business.
Okay.
Just kidding. Just kidding.
Yeah.
All right, Dan, for anybody, and obviously I have the site up on the screen, which I'll put it right back up, but anybody that wants to find you, I assume find you on LinkedIn or go to premierretailsupport.com.
Absolutely.
Okay.
www.premierretailsupport.com.
That sounds good. For Dan, I'm
or
Nick.
they could call me at 412-841-6626. And here's something, Nick, you won't hear very often. I answer the phone. It doesn't roll to a menu. It doesn't. And I welcome calls. If anybody has any questions after seeing this this interview, I'd be happy to field your calls today, tomorrow, whenever you're free.
I love it. Dan, great conversation. For Dan, I'm Nick. Thanks for paying attention and listening to Dan's story. Take care, everybody.
Nick, thank you very much.